Okay, so I have a strong urge to get my NDE recorded today. Um, I woke up at um actually like 11:30 at night, and uh so it's like 3 in the morning now, and you know how they always say like between the hours of 3 and 5 or whatever, 3 and 4 is like a highly spiritual time. And I'm just feeling like I'll do my best. But it is literally 3 a.m. So I have no script. I have, the general points. This will be the first time that I am telling the full story. I can start back when I was really young. Um, when I really I my first memory is of realizing that I was really a human on planet Earth. I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm really here." And so I knew like I was very young when I had that feeling. I was like living in this particular house, and I I was just doing something random, but then I felt myself like come down like a dark tunnel, but into my body. And like I didn't have any physical sensations from this at that time, but I felt myself come from somewhere and settle in my body, and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm here." So I guess maybe um it's I'm not perfectly clear on exactly what age I was, but I was young, and that was like I was like, "Oh, that's my first thought. I'm here now." And then like I just had this feeling my whole life that um someone was with me. First because whoever they were, I would sing to them, and then I was like, I bet that's my, like, I didn't really have this exact thought because let's say I was like 4 years old, right? But I was like, I bet that's my spirit guide. Like, I just knew that someone was with me. And then I had a really extreme situation growing up, and so people would say, "Oh, I'll pray for you," and I was like, "Well, what I really need is an adult." So I asked for an adult, and that's when I felt more energy come in, and so I felt like protected. But then a lot of years passed. Like, let's say this was around when I was like 3, 4, 5, and then like a lot of years passed, and I was like, I can't, like, I wasn't like feeling that like presence of anyone being with me anymore. And I actually had a period of time I was like really stressed out by my circumstances, so I was like, I'll be atheist. So then my journey continued when I was well, first I stayed like really interested in ghost stories. So I was reading a lot of ghost stories and stuff, and I had like a series of experiences uh age 8, um and I have verified since then with a colleague of mine, a medium, that age 8, when all of that stuff was happening, like I saw a spirit phenomenon with my own eyes, and I didn't like that, like my physical eyes, and I didn't like that, so I pretty much immediately put up a boundary about that. But my colleague was able to confirm for me that that was like me opening as a channel, so that was age 8. But then like from age 8 to 16, I was like, this is too much. It can't really be real. I'm going to be like atheist because life is really hard. I was a kid. I wasn't having a great childhood. I was like, I guess I'll be atheist. But when I was 16, I met some metaphysically minded people, and they said something about, oh, your aura is purple. And my mother had always said, you're a purple person. So it made me like really pay attention. And very soon after that, I was seeing auras because I was like, oh, there's auras to see. And it just like switched on. And it was like really that simple. But I was, just for the record, seeing them with my mind's eye because I still had the boundary in place that I only wanted to see that kind of stuff in my mind's eye because I had seen stuff with my physical eyes and not enjoyed it. So you can set boundaries with this stuff, and I'll make a separate video about that. So, and boundaries with this stuff that's a healthy thing to do. So anyway, that's the beginning of like my story, and then I like kind of knew that spirit guides were a thing when I was like 16. I was like, okay, they're real. And I was having very minor experiences of experiencing like some spirit guide activity. But I was like, but I can't, I was like, I can't really, it's not really like a two-way communication. I really want communication with my spirit guides. And then I went like and lived some life, and I was really depressed. I had been depressed really since around age 8, but you know, there's like waves of it. So I was depressed. And then basically, I guess in 2010, so I must have been, I really don't want to do math right now about my exact age, but it was 2010, and I went through like a major depression. It was like it absolutely was my dark night of the soul. I attempted to unalive, and so when I attempted to unalive, the first like kind of like version of that, like I experienced blackness. It was just regular blackness, and I woke up and I was like, oh, I didn't remember anything. I don't remember anything. But I started to hear well, so that happened, and I was like, oh, I didn't remember anything. So then like I was like, I'm gonna try again. And I tried again. And I am not endorsing this. This was the most painful, like, it really was my dark night of the soul. I really felt like I wasn't going to make it, but that's exactly why my spirit guides finally did show up, because I basically, the way they explained it, I don't have exact memory of this. I have like impressions of like sort of this floaty feeling during some of this, but the way they explained it was that well, a couple different ways, and this is where it starts defying like how to put it in words. So I'm gonna try my best, and if I have to excuse me, if I have to split this in 2 videos, I will. But basically, the first part of it was I came back, and I was kind of like, wow, I'm back. Like, what happened? Like, why did I come back? And I started hearing, that that I had a choice. I heard this from my spirit guide. So all of a sudden I realized I am hearing like full sentences from my spirit guides, which is exactly what I had always wanted. So they were like, well, you can't remember like exact pictures of this, but basically you had a choice and you made your choice. It was like a 50-50 choice. You could have stayed and you chose to come back. And I was like, okay. And then I pretty much figured out that I chose in that moment to come back so that I could spare my father the pain of my suicide, because I'm his only child. And so then that evolved, though, because I realized I went through a whole process. I went through a full dark night of the soul. which I rather not get into that, but it, like, after waking up, it got worse, okay? It was worse than before this, like, unaliving attempts. So once I woke up, it was worse. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I do not endorse, like, trying to do this, because it was so, like, living through this was, like, the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. But, over a period of many years, like, I was like, but I'm still, like, feeling unfulfilled, and I don't understand it. And I realized, like, you can't, like, you can say something like, I'm gonna come back for my children or whatever. That's perfectly valid. But I realized I couldn't just come back for my dad and, like, be living for my dad. And this is a thing that is still unfolding in my life. Like, there's, even this year, there were, like, developments around this. And it's like, I've realized, like, that really, I had to come back for myself and, like, restructure my life so that I have a life that I want to be in, not like a life that I'm running away from. But getting back to the actual experience of the NDE, so some of it I couldn't remember, but, like, my spirit guide was able to narrate things, and then I would see, like, little impressions of light when he would, this is mostly Steve, and he would say stuff like, I helped you get back into your body. And I'm like, okay. And the thing about it is, what they say about, like, if somebody is lying, they would, like, there's little things they change in their story. And when somebody is really not lying, nothing in the story changes. He's told me the parts of it that I don't fully remember. When we talk about it, it's always the same. It's the same progression of events. It's the same details. So anyway, but that was the first attempt. And then, like, after this, so this is why it's kind of like one NDE that was, like, 2 weeks apart, or, like, 1.5 weeks apart, or whatever, because the second half I do remember. And the second half, so when I was like, I have to go back, like, I have to go back, I was trying to go back, so, but there was more to it than that. Like, I was really in my dark night of the soul. And so, but then I do remember, because I was, like, back in the hospital. They were, like, really concerned, because they were first like, oh, you did this for attention. And I was like, I didn't really do it for attention. And then I was like, nobody believes me, so I'm gonna keep trying until I get home. And, but the second time they believed me. They were like, oh my goodness, you're back. I guess we shouldn't have said that kind of stuff to you. And then, so I was in the hospital, I was recovering and stuff, and they were like, take this pill. And the thing they gave me, I had never taken before. And, this pill, like, I took it, and I went to lay down, and I fully left my body. Like, I left my body. I was, like, seeing my body on the bed. So this is the part that I do remember, and it resembles an NDE, okay? So I was seeing my body on the bed. I was seeing, like, 360 degrees. Like, I had better vision than I've ever had in my life, because I have impaired vision in physical form. I did not leave the room, because I was kind of, I stayed in the room that I was in. And the other thing that was happening was, like, before I left my body, there was, like, this incredible sound, like, almost like honestly, it's hard to describe, but almost like an airplane taking off. Like it was like this buzzing, like my whole body was buzzing, and there was this sound, like incredible sound. And and then I like separated from my body, and then I could like see my body on the bed, and I was like, wow, it's dead. I was like, it is dead. Like, it is, I'm not even that body. That body has nothing to do with me. And I was like, and then I realized, like, I'm in this, like, you know, the void. Like, they say, some people say, like, it's velvety. Um, I was, like, in consciousness. I was aware that my consciousness had continued. And, but I was like, the body is dead because I had had like an allergic reaction to this medication. And nobody was in the room with me, nobody heard me or anything because they like already kind of given me up for dead in the like where I was in the hospital. They were just like, take this and go away. So I can only say that like I had 360-degree vision. And then I was like in the velvety void, and I was connected to literally everything. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna like go on an astral travel journey or anything like that. I was just like connected to everything. I had no questions. I had no questions left. There was like nothing was bothering me. Nothing was I had no questions. But then I heard something, and now I realize, like, literally, I've decided only in the last year, like, this has to have been my spirit guide. Like, the first time they were like, okay, Emmett is gonna get full sentences from now on. So I got I was just like, I wasn't asking any questions, but they were like, you are in this situation and you are this depressed because you are trans, like transgender, and you haven't acted on it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I had other experiences of knowing that I was transgender, like from age 3 or 4, um, which didn't go well because it was the 80s. There was like no coming out. I was a disabled person. My family would not let me come out or anything. Like that wasn't going to be a thing in the 80s. So I had known about it and buried it, and that was just like what was. So anyway, this full sentence that I heard was like, you're in this situation because you are transgender. And I'm like, okay. And I knew that meant that I had to act on it. I knew that meant like I was gonna somehow get back in the body, and I was gonna have to, act on it and like take this seriously, because I knew, you know, at the time I wasn't thinking, oh, that's my spirit guide, but I had like a full sentence of like a divine download or whatever, right? Like I knew it was like coming from the fact that I was connected to everything. So I knew like it was really serious. Like that's really the reason this was happening to me. And I was like, okay, well, I really don't want to be this depressed like ever again, so I will remember that. And then I kind of came out of the velvety void. I wasn't really thinking about it being velvety. It was more like it was so dark, but I was so peaceful, and I was so connected to everything. I had no worries. I had no questions. So, but anyway, when people do describe it as like a velvety void, I know it's the same place. And so anyway, then I was like, okay, I like came out of the void because I didn't have any questions. I didn't have anything to ask anyone or like find anyone. For me, I wouldn't have like really benefited from like an experience of like, say, like an ascended master. Like it just wouldn't have added to the experience for me. So I just experienced consciousness, and that fit for me. And then I was like back in the room, aware I was still outside of my body. And then eventually I had to get back in my body. And let me tell you, one reason I know this was an NDE is that getting back into my body was incredibly difficult. A lot of people who have NDEs will explain that it's kind of like you're going back in as if being sucked in through a straw. It's very painful. The body is very heavy, and it took me when I like came back into my body and everything, I could barely move. And it ended up taking me, like, getting fully situated back in my body actually was a huge part of my recovery process. And like, lights were too bright, TV was too much, like music was overwhelming. Like, I had to completely rewire being back in the body, like, over a period of time. And I had experiences with Archangel Michael when I was really young, and he came back. I am losing battery, so I'll do my best here. I'll speed up. I'm almost done. So he came back, and he over a period of years, he slowly acclimated me back to being in my body. And I also wrote a lot during this period of time, and like kind of rewired my brain by writing and writing and writing and writing fiction, like literally anything in order just to be in the writing process. So in any case, that I have to cut off now but that's basically the story of it. I was pretty much done, but in order to not lose the video, I have to stop now. And I hope that this helps someone.